Hey, Steve Mignani here with some really good junkyard news. If you're going to be anywhere near Sherman, Texas on March 24th and 25th, know that there's going to be an outdoor auction put on by DuncansAuctions.com of over 200 solid Texas parts vehicles. It's going to be Fords, GM, Mopar, lots of tractors, and even forklifts. These things all have to go. It's an online auction, but also an on-site auction. If you happen to be in Sherman, Texas, you can go and bid in person, or again, online, but all 200 vehicles have to go. Don't let them get crushed. To learn more about this auction, which happens on March 24th and 25th of 2023, check it out on DuncansAuctions.com. And keep in mind, if you're seeing this after March 24th or 25th, 2003, the auction's over with. But before then, make sure you check it out and save some of these cars. Don't let them go to the crusher. Hey, Steve Mignani here doing the junkyard crawl at Bernardstown Auto Wrecking in Bernardstown, Massachusetts, with a very uncommon vehicle. Now, to the casual observer, it might look like we find ourselves at Tucker in the junkyard. Now, what's a Tucker? Well, we all remember that movie, Tucker, Preston Tucker, the man, the legend. Here is 1948 Tucker, the first new car in 50 years. Well, this is not a Tucker. What this is a Hudson Commodore 8. Now, almost as innovative, frankly, the Commodore and the lesser Hudsons had something called step-down design. We'll get to that in a second, but 1948 is the very first year for the step-down design. And some would call it potato styling, but Hudson begged to differ. These actually had pontoon delete, if you will, smooth sides. The rear fender openings were closed. These were very advanced cars for their time. Now, the price on this, brand new, was $2,514, or about the same price as a basic Lincoln, which had a V8. Meanwhile, a Ford V8 was $1,100 less. So Hudsons were generally bought by people who were looking for a little more in their car, and the Hudson really delivered. Now, here's the thing. In 1948, when this thing was built, Hudson was number 11 in Detroit. Detroit couldn't fail to sell because the post-war pent-up demand for cars, anything sold. So Hudson was doing okay. Now, Hudson, of course, debuted in 1910 and actually built cars through the 1957 model year. But from 55, 6, and 7, Nash and Hudson had merged. So 1910 through 53 were the true Hudsons. Now, this one's a beautiful, well-preserved kind of example. The Lucite logo here in the front is still there, Hudson. And again, plastic on cars, a big deal in the post-war era. It was the miracle material, sort of like carbon fiber is today. The Hudson triangle right here, the hood ornament still very much in effect, standing proud. And again, this one here is a Commodore, which is the upscale model. Now, under the hood of this thing, let's see what we find. And yeah, okay, that's an 8-cylinder engine. Now, it's not a V8, that's the thing. See, Hudson didn't have a V8 of its own. So this is going to be a straight 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is the 254 cubic inch straight 8, which was the basic engine, or actually this is the optional engine. The basic motor would have been a 6-cylinder, 262 cubic inches, but $115 extra. Got you a smaller engine? Yeah. The 6 was a 262, this is a 254, but here's the difference. This has 128 horsepower, the 6-banger had 121, but beyond that, the 8 was a smoother engine, a little more torque, and frankly, more in keeping with the Hudson's somewhat upscale image. Now, this one here is the single 2-barrel carburetor right here, but look at the exotic construction. Aluminum intake manifold with a semi-ram tune design. It's not a log, not a bad piece. And this is the optional high compression 7-to-1 aluminum cylinder head with the word Power Dome right there cast into it. Power Dome, kind of cool. The head studs right here. And of course, no bolts. These are studs that keep that head down in position. And again, we can see right here, Hudson's coil spring front suspension right there with the upper and lower control arms here, the friction shock in place down low, and the inner fender is removed on this one here. Now, Hudson was a very advanced car in many, many ways. In fact, most people remember the Hudson from this car here, the 52 Hudson Hornet. And if you watch the movie Cars, the cartoon, Doc Hudson, played by Paul Newman, of course, an iconic character. And of course, this right here is another Hudson. This is a 52. Similar bones, and we can see this one has the twin H-Power 308 cubic inch 6-banger, a NASCAR legend. More on that in a moment. You can see the same basic air cleaner, in effect, on this 254 cubic inch 8. Now, this inline 8, although it was a smaller engine than the 6, was in production through 1952. But mostly the 6s were the ones that made a big deal in racing. But the big thing about Hudson, frankly, was the stepped down design. If we look here, we can see that the frame is actually flat, the floor is flat, and step down means that when you got into a Hudson, you didn't step up, you stepped down, which allowed the body to be lower and look kind of like a Tucker. And to be honest, the rear wheel openings on these things, there's no opening, little tiny thing down there. So if you had to change a rear tire, you jacked up your Hudson, let the axle hang, and then that's how you change your tire. But again, this is all about streamlining. And this model, by the way, came out in 2018 by Mobius. You can still buy these today. It's kind of a cool little way to learn more about the Hudson. But as we make our way around the side of this one, this is a 4-door. These are available as 2 doors and 4 doors. But as we talk about that step down design, here it is right here. You can see right here the word Hudson on the rocker. There it is, but the floor is down. In fact, inside of this is the side frame rail, and these are unit construction. The frame is welded to the floor, but the step down allowed the entire cockpit and roof to be dropped down several inches. So these were truly kind of space age. Has the factory Hudson radio. This one's a 3-speed manual, but just a really exotic Art Deco treatment on that dashboard. A clock. This one stopped at 20 past 1 in the afternoon, but down below the dash we see the Hudson optional heater with the Hudson logo in the middle and the on-off. Of course, bench seats front and rear, and again, these were priced at $2,514, or just about the same price as a basic Lincoln 4-door. And in the back, more of that step-down design. We see it right here. That's about a 4-inch drop right down there, so your feet were down lower. And these were big in NASCAR. The beauty of these was that they had a low center of gravity, and they had less ability to tip in a corner. They were corner huggers, and as a result, really good in early NASCAR racing. And in fact, this is Hop Up magazine right here, November 1953. And the Hudson Story, America's Stock Car Champion. Here's the whole tale on Hudson's rise to power. And we can see right there at the top left, the Progressive Independent. And it says, this is a story about the upstart who upset the apple cart. The fabulous Flathead continues to mop up in stock car competition, and this much maligned motor car is highly esteemed by leading automotive engineers, editors, and racing drivers. The Flock brothers were big Hudson drivers, Fronty and Tim Flock, and this is the double carbureted twin H-Power 308. And that's the engine right there that made the Hudson a legend, the Hornet 308 in NASCAR 52.3 and part of 54. And but beyond all of that, the luxury inside of this thing is very nice. Look at the door panels with this inset little area right here, cigarette ashtray here, and again, just a nice armrest, beautifully appointed, fake wood. And again, this is sort of a wood grain Dynoc covering, steel, but you know, must have looked pretty spiffy when it was new. But again, the weird thing about these, sort of like the Nash of the time, the Airflight styling Nash, was how the rear wheel openings, there's no way to get the tire out of there. This basically means you've got to jack the car up, the axle hangs, and then you can change a flat tire. But with that said, there's this much room between the fender and the tire. So basically, you know, it was designed with a narrower rear axle. You can get the tire out of there. But with that said, most cars would have a cutout, you remove it, but not here. At the back, semi-fastback styling, and again, these are available as 2 doors and 4 doors. And this 1948 predates the 49 Mercury by 1 full year. A lot of people say the Hudson's the only car that comes from the factory already chopped, because the roof is so low and squat, and that's basically all a function of the step-down floor that allowed the greenhouse to be lower. And these cars sat down 3 inches lower than most American cars. Very advanced. Not a Tucker, but almost as cool. Inside the trunk, yeah, okay. Got a little bit of originality. The original trunk mat here, the rubber in place. We see here some bits and pieces, an old Electric Perk Stop and Shop coffee. A little bit of rust going on with that. But yeah, the trunk on this, plenty of room. We can see the original sort of brown paint up here on that area right there. And these cars were pretty well equipped, but one thing they did not come with standard was backup lights. If we come here, we'll see here the tail lights with the Hudson crest, a little triangle, a glass lens right here, not plastic until a couple of years down the road. But here, right here, this is the backup light. When you put it in reverse, this will light up. See the word Hudson right there? So this is a dealer accessory or a factory, but again, optional backups, and that's a Hudson piece right there. And there's only one on the driver's side, because when you're backing up, you don't really need both lights. We come around here, we can see the nicely streamlined gas filler here, and kind of tucks in plain sight, part of that streamlined design that was all the rage after World War II. And again, on this side here, this one's a four-door. You could get these things as convertibles, believe it or not, the two-door convertible. And of course, also the two-door coupes and this four-door. And again, you can see the beautiful inside. Look at the little rope, the robe handle here, the handles on the back seat. And just, you know, nice mohair construction on the seats. A luxurious car, and again, in the same price range as Lincoln. So again, $1,100 more than a V8 Ford. And one of the things that really kind of haunted Hudson was the fact they didn't have a V8. Although the Hudson Hornet 308 twin H-powered dual carbureted engine was a NASCAR champion, in everyday use, frankly, you know, Cadillac's 49 V8 was a better engine. So Hudson kind of suffered a little bit in the marketing game because of its archaic flathead engines. But here's something to keep in mind. If you remember the Camaro Z28 in 1967, at General Motors, a guy named Vince Piggins was the chief engineer. He was the guy behind the Z28 and a whole lot of other cool cars. Well, Vince Piggins cut his teeth at Hudson. He was part of the factory NASCAR program in 51, 52. Vince Piggins and Smokey Yunick also had played a big role in helping to make Hudson a star on early NASCAR tracks, making Bill France the billionaire that he eventually became, which dynasty continues to this day. So here's the Hudson. Don't call it a Tucker, but again, to some people, nearly as influential for its step-down design. Now, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Maggs YouTube channel, share this video with your friends, get the word out, and by all means, hit the bell so that you're aware of the next video, which is tomorrow morning.